afternoon. My name is Ikenna Eruchalu, and welcome to Less Traveled, a business and educational podcast focusing on the lifestyle and stories of young leaders who are pursuing really interesting things that align with their passions. These passions can range between businesses to hobbies and skills. To introduce myself, I'm a senior at the University of Pennsylvania and raised as a first-generation Nigerian American. After graduating from Penn this spring, I'll be working as an investment banker at Goldman Sachs in New York City. Dimitri Wheeler is an incoming investment analyst for KKR in their next-gen technology group in San Francisco, California. He will be joining me here on Let's Travel as a co-host. Dimitri, why don't you let our viewers and listeners learn a bit about you and your background?
Yeah, no, definitely. So it's kind of like E. I'm a Haitian American, first generation, so raised in an immigrant family, and a lot like Ikenna, very new to the whole finance world as far as the first one in the family really pursue these things. I'll be joining KKR, as you said, working primarily in the technology space, investing in companies that are really highly growth oriented. And I'm also really passionate about democratizing and equalizing the access to capital. And last year founded a nonprofit based in Salt Lake City where we give investments to minority and female-led founders.
Wow.
But yeah, all right, cool. So that's a nice little intro there. And let's get to our guest, Chelsea Hamlet. So Chelsea is a recent Duke University graduate and current investment banking analyst at Citigroup, SEO Career Prep Fellow, MLT Career Prep Fellow, and the founder of YoungBusinessWomxn. All right, so let's get started here. So Chelsea, could you provide our listeners and viewers a little bit of a background to you and what it was like growing up in Brooklyn in New York?
Mm-hmm. So I think one thing that you both mentioned that I didn't know that we all had in common was, my mom is from Trinidad, and I'm also like first generation American in a Caribbean household. Yes. And my stepdad, he's Surinamese, which is in South America, like right up top. And he also came from Suriname, or they say Suriname, and spent a lot of time in Amsterdam. So it's really culturally diverse, but we all ended up in Brooklyn, right? I have lived in Brooklyn for most of my life. I did spend some time actually living in Trinidad with grandparents, and I guess that provided me with like a unique perspective on life, just having spent time like actually living out of the country, but it was when I was much younger. But I would say, especially the part of Brooklyn that I live in, I've been able to witness firsthand transformation, but I've always been a person that's very, very interested in and concerned with cultural roots of any given place. So all that to say is that the Brooklyn that I've grown to know and love has transformed over time, but I can still see remnants and tributes to the Brooklyn that they talked about in the 90s, or like what makes Brooklyn what it is. So yeah, that's it. But my whole life has been in this like little triangle of space that my neighborhood is. Like my dance school was here, middle school, elementary school, not high school. That was in a different borough. But otherwise, yes, all Brooklyn.
Nice. And so what would you say was your favorite childhood activity to do while growing up in Brooklyn?
Yeah, so I was in the student company at Mark Morris Dance Center. So it's not too far from like where I lived, and it was just like the biggest and closest dance school. I actually started late compared to the girls that will say like I've been dancing since I could walk. I started late. I started at like 7. And
so starting at 7 is late.
Yes. Like literally, like it's late. And I just like fell in love with dance. My parents try to put me into other activities. My mom will often tell me about this story when she took me into like a karate school, and we walked in and I said no. Like, she's like, okay, this is not for you. I'm like, it's not. I don't want to do this. Right. And I also played guitar for pretty much like my whole life up until I left for college. That's when I stopped. It was more of something that I did to build up like discipline. It was like one of those things.
Electric or acoustic?
So I started off with classical guitar, and I had a teacher, and he used to come by our house, and he would teach me like really, really amazing things. Now I think about it, like I learned how to play Take 5. Like Take 5, now I'm looking back at it, it's like in a 5 count. And just being able to like learn how to play that on the guitar. I think that was in elementary school. So he was a very skilled teacher. And then I got an acoustic guitar, and I think still at my parents' house, which is not too far. But I had a phase where I loved Pink and I love Hello Kitty. Loved. Maybe I still do. So my stepdad, he got me a pink Hello Kitty electric guitar. And yes. Yes.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I guess like a little bit of all three.
That's crazy. You know what's funny enough? So I actually used to play the guitar also too. And I actually took lessons, even made my own song once, which took a long time, just kind of playing around with chords and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, guitar is definitely something that I did because I was interested in music pretty early on. But that's interesting, actually. I mean, I never got a pink Hello Kitty guitar, but I mean, I was still, I was still trying to make my way. But cool.
You know what's funny though?
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick note, I used to play guitar like it was a bass.
Really?
And it like frustrated like my stepdad, because like he's really like into music, like that's his whole life, like music. And I don't know if it frustrated him, but everyone thought it was weird that I could never use a pick, right? And they would like gift me guitar picks, and they're all probably still at home, and they'd be like, just use the pick, just use it. And I would always be like, no, like I can only use these 2 fingers like I'm playing the bass to play the guitar. So weird. And I still play it that way. Sometimes I go home and I play around, might send in a video, but yeah.
No, that's pretty cool. I feel like this too, with playing with a pick, it's easier to string notes. But like if you're playing with your thumb, right, or like I guess like your nail, it's a lot harder. So interesting. I guess you're more skilled at it than I am then. But cool. So I guess talking more on the musical side of things. So you were involved with dance early on as you were a teaching assistant for the Mac Morris dance group for a couple of years. And I was actually pretty curious to see actually how you first got interested in dance.
Yeah. I don't quite remember. I've always just kind of been like a mover and a shaker, and I still am. And you know how parents are like, we want to get your kid involved in some kind of art form that they're interested in. I think my first classes were hip hop classes, right? So I was like, oh, this is fun. I love this. And it might have also just been a way for my parents to like get me off their hands for a few hours, because I would go to like summer camps and stuff. And then I was also attracted to the community. So for a while growing up, I was the only child in my household, right? I have siblings now, right? My brother's 10 years younger than me. Mm. So you can imagine around 6, 7, it was just me at home. And that our dance community out of school, like I still communicate with some of the girls today. And we literally started off like small together and grew through the company. And then also Mark Morris, he's a legend. He is a wonderful choreographer, a very eccentric person. And I was in the student company. And what that means, it's like they have the professional company, and then they have like the pre-professional dancers that are part of the student company. And we would actually learn his pieces and do his repertoire and learn it from people in his professional company, and at times from him.
Wow.
And I just remember like having those opportunities. I was always very cognizant of the cultural importance of things like that, I guess because my family is really big into like respecting legendary people. So I don't know, it was just a vibe,
Yeah, I definitely feel that's cool. I mean, that's really interesting too about that experience and how it really played a big part in terms of your upbringing. And so digging a bit deeper to your dance experience, right? I mean, like you were a pre-professional dancer and had the chance to learn from other dancers while participating in that dance group. So I'm pretty curious to hear more about what it was like learning from other dancers? Was it pretty competitive? Like, you guys kind of get into it at times because you're like, oh, like, I'm the best dancer. Like, I know she's the best dancer. Kind of get into fights or anything like that?
Right. What I will say, it's dance in a lot of ways is like what people see as like traditional sports, right? So I think you swim, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah. So I swim in college for
every sport has its competitive aspect. So outside of dancing at Mark Morris, I also went to a performing arts high school. So like real live High School Musical type.
Yeah,
literally
exactly.
like I kid you not, like people playing their instrument in the hallway.
Really? That's kind
like
of a vibe,
actually
though.
like
That's wild.
Yeah. The founder of my high school was Tony Bennett.
Oh, wow.
He is he's a legend, right? So the name of the school is Frank Sinatra because he and Frank Sinatra like were tight. And the school was like his namesake and I guess like a tribute to Sinatra. And our mascot was actually the Sinatra Legends. And it was in Queens, and I think that was the environment where competition manifested itself the most heavily. Because I guess at Mark Morris, once we all got to like high school age, it became more of like this is like an extracurricular. But then you go to school for it. And, you know, you get graded on it. Like, I took dance regents. Like, in New York City, we have, like, standardized tests that everyone has to take. I got an arts-endorsed diploma, which you have to take tests for. We had, like, juries, which is where they literally, like, give you a grade on your dancing and your technique. That right there will breed competition. And it wasn't just in dance. Yeah, like it wasn't just in dance, it was like all over across the board. They also had like awards. So at the end of the year, we'd all gather in it's an auditorium, but you know, it was called the concert hall. And we would gather in there and they would give out awards for highest performance and most improved, just like in front of the entire school. So I mean, I guess that's another way that competition and like people naturally want to be good at what they're passionate about. You combine that with grades and you combine that with like public displays of skill and ability, like showcases, dance shows. And we had a lot of amazing opportunities to dance in front of some influential people. Like my high school partnered with the American Ballet Theater and Alvin Ailey. And
that's pretty cool.
There was an experience where we performed on stage at the Met.
Wow.
The Metropolitan Opera House. And I kid you not, I remember this day. I will always remember this day, even if I don't really dance as much anymore. Missy Copeland was on stage, right? We were all warming up, like me and my like high school peers. And then lo and behold, we turn around and we see the Missy Copeland just doing her warm-up, stretching on the Met stage. And it was insane. I kid you not, remember it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very competitive, but that's just how any athletic person is. And any driven person would be, you know? If you care, usually you try to do your best, and so is everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it sounds like that you definitely were very competitive really early on, and there was kind of a whole culture, I guess, in itself to just really you being a part of that dance group and taking it as far as you could. And you actually did take it to the college level while you chose to study at Duke University. And actually, funny enough, my middle brother actually went there. He graduated in 2014, but, you know, was pretty curious actually to see what went into your decision to go to Duke.
Yes. So there's like a longer story, but then there's also like the concise story. You know, being first gen. So I'll start with a short one. Like, being first gen, I like, you know, especially with Caribbean parents or like, you know, African parents, it's like you're going to college. So for me, it was like, I guess I'm going. It was just a matter of where.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
So I applied to, it all goes back to like Duke sending me a poster in the mail when I was like 13, 14. And it was a picture of the chapel. So if your brother went there, you've seen the chapel.
Yeah.
Really beautiful. And on the poster it said, other than the architecture, nothing here is set in stone. And I was like, I like that. I took that poster and I put it up on my wall at like 14 years old, like knew nothing about the school. All I knew was that I liked that poster and that it was a really good school. Fast forward years later, I applied. I didn't think I was going to get in. On paper, people were like, my guidance counselor was like, yeah, you're a good candidate. Like, don't feel like you're not a good candidate. Like, it's probably because, like a sense of like not feeling like you belong there or not feeling like you have the credentials, but like, you're fine. Like you have a chance just like everyone else did, but I didn't think so. Last minute, I put in, not last minute, I knew I wanted to apply to Duke, but I put in applications to Duke, and then, I didn't think I was going to get in at all, but Princeton and Georgetown. And I'd only applied to 7 schools, so that was 3 out of the 7. So I was like, okay, that's a risk. And I'd gotten in to all of the 7, and I was blessed enough to have gotten like full rides to all of them. So at that point, it really became a matter of what felt right. And then there were just coincidences that led me to Duke. So I live downtown Brooklyn, where Barclays Center is, always have. And it was like March 10th of 2017, so when we were all like graduating from high school, and it was the day of the Duke versus UNC game during the ACC tournament at Barclays Center. Yeah, right. And I remember that was the day that I decided, like, I don't care what happens, like if I get in to Duke, I'm gonna go there, and I'm also gonna end up being a cheerleader. I'm going to make the switch from dance to cheer. So you have to think about it. Like, the Barclays Center is literally like 2 minutes from my lifelong dance school. Like, they're facing each other, like within that same triangle. And I was like, like on the outside looking in, like, those people, like those cheerleaders, like the coaches, they don't know me yet, but I'm going to that school and I'm going to be a cheerleader. And I hadn't even gotten my acceptance letter yet. But then 2 weeks later, I'd gotten into Duke. And at that point, I got into Duke before the Princeton acceptance came letter, before Georgetown. No, I did Georgetown early action. So I knew that was somewhere I had an option of going. But I was like, I don't even care. Going to Duke. And that's where I went.
Nice. No, I mean, I'm definitely curious, coming from Brooklyn, such a, urban and really diverse area. How was that transition to this sort of small town vibe of Duke University?
Listen, every place has good and bad attributes.
Amen to that.
Durham's got heart. Like, give it up to the Bull City. It's like a historic place. Like, especially if you're into sports, like the UNC Duke rivalry and like the Triangle area. There's also like NC State in that like triangle, and they think that they're part of the rivalry, but they're like not. State is watching that. They're not. They're just not. But
wow, shade thrown.
Shade has been thrown, but it's got a lot of culture. It's got a lot of heart. People would tell me like, there's downtown Durham, which it has like every culture food that you can think of, and I was like, oh, that's like a similarity to New York, cultural mixing. There's a lot of like diversity in Durham, and some of it is in the form of like restaurants, and some of it is in the form of just like different races and ethnicities all living in the same place. There's definitely, like, being honest, a huge separation between like Duke affiliated places and native Durham, but you kind of see that with any college town. It can be a separation of lifestyle. It can be like a separation of activities, and that's something that you always have to reckon with, like the native Durhamites, we call them, and versus like college students that are just there for a few years and don't really intend on staying. So yeah, it's just all about like having respect for the places you were. But Durham is cool. And even though it wasn't the same as New York, and I would talk negatively about it sometimes, I can walk away with an appreciation for what Durham had to offer. I even did some research projects on like the history of Durham, so I could better understand like racial inequities in the area. And One thing I will tell you is that there are some shared experiences in every place, in every city across the country.
No, it's definitely true. It's definitely true. And so did you really, hit the ground running? Were there kind of initial challenges as far as that process of just adjusting to a new environment, or?
Yeah, this one, I'm sure it'll get y'all because I'm sure you can relate. I went into college, I was just like, I am going to be a doctor. I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to do pre-med. And, I'd even applied for like a pre-med fellowship, like before I got there. I was in Chem 101, like the introductory chem course. I could not stay awake. I just couldn't. It doesn't matter how much I slept. Like, I just couldn't stay awake. It was the worst. Like, when your body is trying to tell you, like, this is not for you.
Yeah.
Like, there was terrible. There were some times I would sit in the front row because I'm like, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to stay awake. And I would sit in the front row right in front of the professor and
Still
literally
and
just be totally knocked out, fully asleep. And then that's when I realized, like, I admire people that choose that path and like have the grit to stick through those courses for 4 years. That just ain't me. So I was like, I'm still really interested in healthcare, and I'm also really like politically inclined as a person. I can be pretty opinionated, like most people can. I'm learning to be more gentle, but I switched over to public policy, which was really interdisciplinary. And I think that once I found something that I could at least stay awake through the classes, I was like, okay, I'm riding with this. Like,
on the right track.
right, this is okay, right? And you take for public policy, it's really interdisciplinary, so you take like economics courses as well, and it's just like in studying the law and studying the effects of law on different sectors of society is pretty much applicable to any of the career fields that I've wanted to go into. So it was an amazing major, and I'm so glad I switched early on. I switched my second semester. Best choice ever.
Best choice ever. No, I love that. That's good. And that's a lesson to listeners. If the stars aren't aligning, then, take the signs and stick with what works. But I'm glad you're able to get on that path early. Okay, so you mentioned you're a cheerleader. Okay, you're taking a rigorous course load, it seems like. How did you fit it all in? What was the weekly schedule like? What was it like being part of that team? What was the selection process even like? You had that ambition to be on the team, but how did that all kind of fall into place?
Oh, so this is another story that goes back to just like having like a sense of wanting to accomplish certain things. So one, I overloaded every single semester at Duke except for the first, in addition to summers. That's what allowed me to graduate early. So the regular course load is 4 classes a semester. First semester I took 4, and then I took 5, and then I took 2 credits in the summer, and then 5 again, and then 5 again, and then 5, and then another summer. I think that was like 3 credits, and then 5 again, and then for my last semester, which was spring of 2020, I took 6. Right, so
finishing off with a bang.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was that. And then something that I'm pretty transparent about, it's like the kinds of difficulties I had like in a brand new learning environment. So, I was a person that received like testing accommodations for like just disabilities that I had. And that was another thing I had to work through. But I also had to try out for cheer multiple times before I made the team.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So it was, if there's one thing that Duke taught me, it was to just have a sense of grit. We say we live in a society, and I'm not sure if life was always this way. I think before there was always a separation between like perceived image and what is going on behind the scenes. But I've even had people tell me like, it's amazing the things that you do. But I try to be pretty transparent about the struggles that go on behind the scene. Yeah, I had to take like private gymnastics lessons to make that team. Go out of pocket for those things. I remember the summer before I was on the varsity team, I was in gymnastics like 3 to 4 days a week during my summer internship in Chicago. And before that, I was doing group classes and like some privates at Chelsea Piers in the city, because there's like a field house over there that has really amazing gymnastics coaches. And then in Durham as well, at like the local like gymnastics place, I did private lessons. So I was just like, I need to make this, because cheer and dance are two different things. And while having a dance background was definitely helpful, I'm just a person that likes to be as good as possible as anything I choose to do. So like, if gymnastics is something that I need to learn, so be it. I will do it. And I'm all about like pushing myself to like physical limits, and I'll say that experience, you look back at it and I'll see like the growth over time, and you realize that everything worth having, every goal that you set for yourself that's worth reaching is usually achieved in small incremental steps, applied pressure over time, and that's how you get there. But yeah, it was a struggle, it was a process, and then, just dealing with the pressures of being like a Black student at a PWI, that'll drive you crazy as well. I don't know, there's just nothing like being a Duke student, I would say. For me, there's not many schools in the country that can give you that kind of experience of having both worlds. People know about Duke even if they're not really interested in academia because of its like athletic prowess, but yeah, it was beautiful. Challenging, but beautiful.
Wow. Do you have a favorite moment as a cheerleader specifically? Just touching on that athletic side.
So we played UNC at home last spring in March, like right before everything got shut down. It was like the Sunday before everything got shut down, and the Sunday before the ACC tournament. Or was it Saturday? I don't remember. But that's when we beat UNC at home. And I'm not sure it was like my favorite memory, but it was my last time cheering. And we beat UNC at home.
Honestly, yeah. That's definitely a good way to go out. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, go out with a bang, right? Right.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and then also, I had this like long-standing fear. So I did all the gymnastics classes, but I had a long-standing fear of like doing it on hardwood. And I think that game, I actually threw a back handspring on the hardwood floor in Cameron, which was terrifying, but at least it happened. I can say I did it.
It's tough.
All right, well, maybe we can transition things into a little more of the business side. You talked about the major decision you had in switching the path as far as your area of focus in your studies. How'd you get interested in the world of business? What was that process like?
Yeah, so I think for me, I acknowledged very early on that I have no idea what I really want to do or really want to be. And another thing that society does is place a lot of pressure on like young 20-somethings to just know, and to just like know like they want to enter the business world and stay there, or you know what I'm saying? Like, how are you going to decide at 18 years old that you're going to be pre-med and you want to be a doctor? Some people, yes, they're able to discern that, and some people aren't. So for me, it's just about being open to the opportunities. I just made sure that throughout my undergraduate experience, I gave myself as many experiences as possible. So I did like research-oriented things. So just exposing myself to the academia and seeing how like there are people that like are very successful in academia, like the PhD route. Amazing, beautiful. Maybe me one day. You never know. But right now? Oh, no. Okay, I knew I didn't... Well, even if I did want to be a doctor, I knew I did not want to take another chemistry class ever in my life. So there's that. And I think that business is so interdisciplinary, like my major, right? And within the realm of business, there are so many different sectors and there are so many different functional roles that you can have. And I think it was MLT, applying to MLT, because I really didn't... Okay, maybe this might get somebody upset because, I was lucky enough to be accepted. But I applied to MLT to help me close a gap, because having like the first gen background with Caribbean parents, and my stepdad, he chose a very like non-traditional route, going through the music industry, which is not something that you really, really need. like the college education for, so he didn't really have much insight to give in terms of like my academic pursuits. And then my mom was a stay-at-home mom most of my life. And I was just like, I don't know what there is out there, but I figure that programs like MLT and SEO, I think you guys mentioned them earlier, would help me figure that out. And that's really the start of when I was introduced to like consulting, banking, private equity. I was, the Kiki Palmer meme where she's like, I don't know who that man is. I was like, I don't know what that is, but I guess I'm gonna learn. Yeah, so it was a journey of exposure, and I guess I'm really, really glad that I can say I'm a part of that cohort of amazing, wonderful, talented people that have showed me so many different possibilities, like you two, like Goldman Sachs, KKR. Like, I guess we're killing it over here. Who would have thought?
Honestly,
hey,
though,
City,
Yeah, right.
That's what I'm saying. No, seriously though. I mean, like, we're all killing it, and like you said, right? I mean, there's so many different things to do in the world of business. It's very interdisciplinary, and obviously, to break into the world of business, right? I mean, that was the goal for you, and you definitely went through and followed through. But obviously, right? I mean, after setting that goal, you have to have a plan of action to get there. And obviously, you had some resources like SEO Career and MLT, right? A management leadership for tomorrow to help you out and kind of really, I guess, open your eyes to all the opportunities out there. But, was pretty curious actually to see what your thought process was as you were going through these programs and through the resources that were offered to you, and also the coaches that we had as well, and how that all kind of helped you hone in on your ideal start to a career in business.
Yeah, so I wanted to be in a space where I could learn as much as possible, not just about whatever I was working on, but about like bureaucracy, because the name of the game is that it doesn't matter really where you end up or what you end up doing. There's some sort of bureaucracy that you have to work through. And being at a large organization like I am, it's definitely a way to expose myself to that life while also learning so much and like building up my like actual like tangible skill set in addition to the soft skills, that we talk about, like your communication styles, your like emotional intelligence. I can also say, yeah, I can, whip something up in Excel. I'm not saying I'm good at Excel. I'm just saying that it's something that I'm going to learn and get better at.
Nice. No, you're probably pretty nice at it. But yeah, with time we'll get there eventually.
But I was saying, right? It was, and like about my functional role, my interests academically are really well reflected through my functional role. Being in public finance, it's the intersection of public policy and finance. Public finance. So, it's literally like what it is. And and having exposure to that and seeing like the ends of that process. So my functional role is reflective of the things that I'm interested in. So public finance is the intersection of finance and like working with municipalities and governments and just bringing capital to certain public projects. And that's wonderful to see how that actually happens, because it doesn't matter what your goals are professionally. Whatever you decide to do, it's important that you're good at it, but then it's important that you have a well-rounded understanding of what goes on behind the scenes. So I feel like this is giving me that insight, and then also working with some really, really amazing people and learning from people who have just like this wealth of knowledge and experience, not just about their like functional role in their job, but about life. Those places are super hard. Any job is hard. I think like we lose sight of how amazing it is to be in that space, surrounded by people who are just like so smart. It was something I lost sight of at Duke because it was so stressful, and I would never look to the left and look to the right and be like, wow, like you guys are really smart. It's the same thing at Citi, and I'm sure it's going to be the same at Goldman, and I'm sure it's going to be the same at KKR. People are just really, really intelligent and good at things. And
it's almost daunting, yeah.
Yeah, it's daunting. But you just got to stay in your own lane, run your own race.
Yeah.
And hope for the best.
It's true. Yeah, when I was at Goldman, I mean, yeah, every other person is like, what?
You were at Goldman too?
Yeah, I interned there. I interned there, yeah. But I mean, and the whole cohort, you have student athletes, everyone with complete 4.0. very humbling. That's all I can say. But
Yeah.
but no, that's awesome. And so, you brought up MLT, and just to kind of help the listeners with what that is, that's actually it's a really premier career prep organization. They help college students who are pursuing careers in business be able to get the resources they need and kind of serve as a launch pad into making the right connections they need to place in those top organizations and learn a lot of the skills they need to perform well in interviews and stuff. And so, you leverage that experience, and you said you had a lot of experience as far as, exposure to consulting, to banking, private equity. What ultimately felt right about investment banking to make you want to utilize that experience to help you take that path?
I think it was because being recruited into public finance, right? So I was like, oh, that's very niche. And then even within public finance, I'm in like the healthcare group, which, even adds to the things that I wanted to do. So like healthcare, M&A, nonprofit healthcare systems, like it was that role specifically that drew me in. And then I would say I knew that there were a whole bunch of different ways to be exposed to the kinds of things I wanted to be exposed to, but just having something that just seemed like, wow, like that position was not created for me, but like, it's almost like...
I don't know, that sounds like the perfect intersection. You got the public policy side, healthcare, business. That is tailor-made.
You got everything you want in that job, honestly. It's
definitely a cool experience. And then this happened after I decided to start working at Citi, but we got Jane Fraser, first woman CEO on the street.
Yeah, that's big. That's real big.
She's making big waves.
Yes, and she's great. Her background and just like having her be somebody like within your own organization that you can look up to is beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. And, definitely, having a presence like Jane Fraser, right, as the CEO of Citigroup, definitely something that, is more so along the lines as the general push in the business world to be more inclusive. And right, as a young Black woman who is pursuing a career in a field that is traditionally white and male, I'm pretty sure that there were definitely times when you felt that your gender or race kind of influenced some of the experiences that you had in your internships or, other work experiences, and was pretty curious to learn more about, those experiences and what you personally took away from them.
Yeah, it's all about like incremental progress, I guess. Like how I was saying earlier, like anything worth having, it's you apply pressure over time and you make like incremental progress towards that goal. And I was like, wow, like Jane Fraser symbolically being the CEO, it's still amazing nonetheless, Huge organization, amazing woman.
For sure. And going more into your experience at Citigroup, right, was pretty curious to hear more about the general takeaways and lessons and I guess challenges that you had over that experience. And obviously, there's certain things that you can't talk about just from a standpoint of, I'm obviously keeping non-public information private and, obviously not speaking too much on the clients that you worked with. Was pretty curious to see how you navigated some of the challenges that you encountered on a daily basis while on the job.
Yeah, so it's about like navigating through like a bureaucratic organization. And I think even MLT stressed the development of emotional intelligence and of like a strong work ethic above all else. So those are things that you have to develop over time. I think that those are things I am doing my very best to develop over time, but just being so young, you're going to make mistakes along the way. I would say that it's important to find mentorship, somebody that you can probably like actually speak to, but also people that you can look up to. So I have so many people within the organization that I'm like, wow, like I really admire the things that you've done. And, even if we don't have like a super close like mentor-mentee relationship, I can definitely like look up to you for inspiration. And it's like all about observing people that have been there and have done that, because those people are often the ones that can provide really amazing insight. Observing the best workers and what their work habits are and how you can tailor your work habits to be more like theirs or find something that works for you. It's trial and error, and it can be really daunting. Like, I think, Dimitri, that's what you said earlier. It can be super daunting, especially when everyone's so amazing. But it's all about incremental progress, all about like slow growth and then really, really paying attention. And one thing that working on Wall Street will teach you is how to be an effective and efficient worker anywhere, right? So lessons that I can apply across the board, like always take notes when someone's talking, or always do your research prior to big events. Like, just those things become ingrained into you, and they're just such good habits to practice no matter where you end up. It's just all about developing the habits over time.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Okay, and so you mentioned kind of off air some of the, well, we'll just say, I don't think it's any secret, Wall Street's definitely under the limelight now as far as like work-life balance is concerned. And so not getting anything into your situation, but I was really curious, how do you keep yourself grounded? What kind of other hobbies or habits have been able to do that for you? I mean, you no longer cheer, you already graduated from High School Musical, so what are some of those new things that, those new routines that you do in your free time?
So I dance in the mirror.
Okay.
Kenna, I think this will make you so happy. My favorite artist of all time is Burna Boy. Literally.
Ooh.
In love with that man.
I am
Shout out to Afrobeats.
all the Nigerian Afro pop I've been on for like years now.
No, but like everyone else, Burna Boy. Like, I love that man.
Yeah.
He won a Grammy. I literally cried. Like, I kid you not. I was like, this is such a monumental moment for the continent. Like, this is just amazing. I love Burna Boy. So,
What's your favorite song off of his new, I guess his latest album, you would say?
That's like 10, 20, 10. No, that's a single. Which one's the latest one? Because I just listened to them. Okay, well, I'll say my favorite song right now.
Twice as Tall, or yeah?
It's 23.
Okay.
23.
Yeah, 23 is
23 is good.
Yeah.
I like Dangote because I'm like inspired by Dangote.
Obviously.
Like he's a legend in his own right, and I think the message behind the song is also really beautiful. And it's crazy. Yeah. African Giant is one of my favorite songs as well. I don't know if he has any really hard misses for me. Right?
He don't miss. You don't miss straight up.
He's just great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll like get into music. My building has a gym and also like yoga classes. So they recently started back up, but before the pandemic, I loved yoga. I remember summer 2019 when I was interning in Chicago, I went to hot yoga. Like sometimes I would go from hot yoga straight to my gymnastics class, like one straight to the other, right? Because I was like, it's going to keep me fit and it's a good warm up, but also because I just love hot yoga. So my building offers yoga, so I will be doing that. I'm very glad it started back up again because it gives me an opportunity to like get out of the box that I live in. What else do I do? I read, but sometimes I get a little bit lazy, and I bought like an Alexa for $20, $25 because all the old ones were like really cheap. I bought one of the older models, and I'll have her read to me through Audible.
Innovative.
Yeah, so I'll literally have my Alexa like read to me through Audible, which it's been helpful because I could be preparing a meal and listening to a book about private equity at the same time.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, definitely something that's necessary. I mean, I feel like too, like audio books, consuming books in an audio format is definitely something that's very interesting and kind of innovative too. Because I mean, I feel like in general, most people, in our generation, like Gen Z, really don't read as much as people used to in general. And I guess like kind of taking advantage of technology, right? I mean, now you can use your Alexa to read to you when you're cooking, doing other things like working out, etc. So that's definitely something that's pretty interesting.
Can I show you guys something that I programmed her to do?
Actually, yeah.
Yes, please do.
For sure.
All right, I hope she does it. All right, let's see. You see her in the corner right there?
Yeah.
Alexa,
Yeah.
where will I be in 5 years?
Where the money reside.
She says where the money resides.
Where the money reside. I love that.
Yeah. So that tells you how much free time I have on my hands.
Yeah.
Right, no, I actually don't have that much free time on my hands. But when I do have like a free second, I do like crazy stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, we'll see what the next thing you'll code in that Alexa to say. Maybe we'll say, all right, I'm about to get this bag every Friday or something like that or something.
Chase the bag.
Chase the bag.
Good morning, Chelsea. It's Friday. Chase the bag.
Chase the bag. It's Friday.
Yeah. And then, speaking of chasing the bag, right? I mean, like you started last summer an educational platform called YoungBusinessWomxn that aims to increase the accessibility of resources and support for women in business and just women that are on the come up in the business world. Primarily, this platform helps young business women develop their personal and professional brands, and was curious to see what motivated you to start this.
Yeah, so I think, like Dimitri, you were saying for your nonprofit, democratizing access to capital. For me, it was all about democratizing access to just professional development, because I can admit that like MLT and SEO, without those professional development educational organizations and the resources they provided, I'm not sure if I would have been where I am, truly. But then you think about even those organizations that, are amazing and so helpful, there's still a barrier to get in. You know what I'm saying? Like MLT, you have to apply. Not everyone gets in. And then also you have to pay once you get in. And then SEO, I don't think you have to pay to get in, but you do have to apply. And it is there is a selection process. And then I was just thinking about the platform that you can, especially these days, everyone has an infographic for everything on social media. It doesn't matter what it is. There's an infographic for it. There's a meme for something. It just seems like we've gotten so used to consuming information on that platform and in those ways that if you can meet people where they're already at, then you can be more helpful instead of creating obstacles for people to get where you want them to be. Just meet them where they're at. So the idea behind doing that was, if I can just find the information for myself on Google and put it in an infographic, and then sum up the lessons that I've learned and, put it in an infographic and share links to templates and keep it all in one place on an openly accessible and free platform, then there you go. Everyone already kind of has Instagram, not everyone, but most people do. We spend time on Instagram, just spending time on Instagram. So I was if I just plug these resources in there, it might be helpful. So for example, one of the posts that I did was educating people about MBAs and what it is, and there was a post about 2+2 programs and what the requirements are, what the different options were, executive MBA versus nighttime or full-time or part-time. Those are just things that I guess if you're in certain environments at Duke, everyone's I know what MBA program I'm going to apply to, but that's because the environment that you're in fosters that kind of curiosity. And even if those posts, people already knew the information, I hope it could have still been helpful. They could have shared it with somebody else. And I would always say, for me, I would look at the insights, the Instagram analytics and the insights. And it was never about the likes for me. And it was never about the comments. It was about the shares. And there are a few posts that I made that they got more shares than likes. And I was that says a lot to me, right? That this is information that I knew, right? The people in my group of friends knew because, I have graduated from Duke. I'm an MLT. People in MLT and people in Duke, this kind of stuff is pushed to them. But there are people out there that did not know about that, right? And for example, for 2+2, if you don't apply your senior year of college, that kind of ends your window, right? Because the whole point is to apply your senior year in college. But what if somebody doesn't know that it exists and has all the qualifications to apply, but just doesn't know that it's there? So it's just about making sure that opportunities are known about, making things easier for people, even if it's in a small way and for a small group of people. We all have a part to play. You know, we're all fighting the good fight to, make things easier for people like you and me.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, that rings home to me for sure. I talk to anyone from my hometown about an MBA, they think I said NBA. Like, it's just not on their mind. And so I love that, just equalizing the understanding and access to a lot of these opportunities that can really just level one's life up. And that's awesome. And so you talked about the shares, and that really struck home with me, because that's awesome. It's kind of like how you define success for your organization: shares over likes, shares over comments. But personally for you, and I think this is a question that I plan to ask a lot of our guests, how do you personally define success in your life?
Yeah. This is something that, I'm also going in the midst of an existential crisis right now. So
aren't we all?
I have one every other day, but I guess you guys just caught me at the perfect time. I don't know if you guys listen to Frank Ocean. In Channel Orange, there's Not Just Money, and I think it was his mom, or I don't know who that was. I don't know who that woman was, but she was like, it's not just money, it's happiness, right? And I think in life, we're all in pursuit of happiness, like the pursuit of happiness, like the movie with Will Smith and Jaden Smith, right? We're all in search of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So as I realize that for every single person, there's a journey to fulfillment, there's what is it? The Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it's our whole life, we're just striving for self-actualization. And I tell myself that every day I might not feel like I'm working towards that idea, image, or whatever of success that I have in my mind, but that if I just keep following my heart and doing what I feel is a good step towards that ideal idea of what I want to be and what I want to be doing, I'll get there. So for me, success is defined by, it's hard. I want to say happiness, right? But it's a balance between finding momentary happiness versus long-term happiness. So I think the best comparison I can think of is the gratification of getting a one-time bonus, right? And that one-time bonus in that moment, you're okay, this is a chunk of cash, right? That will make me happy right now. But then you spend it, right? And you give yourself that instant gratification of having that happiness. But then in the long term, there are smarter decisions and certain sacrifices that you could have made that would have led you to more long-term happiness. So for me, it's about working towards that overall long-term happiness and trying to stay grounded. I say all you can really do in this life is admit when you're wrong, take feedback, try to be as gracious as possible, and we all fall short. But if you just try your best and approach things with a certain humility, which I think we all can struggle with at times, you'll find your way there. I'm pretty religious. I know not everyone is. I respect it. But I say that, God will lead me to where I need to be. So yes, I don't know how I define success, but in tangible terms, no, I don't. I would not say it's something that can be measured in terms of a monetary goal or measured in a number. It's a feeling. I feel successful when I get through a day. I feel successful after a good workout. It really just all depends on things that bring you gratification. And that doesn't have to be in the ways that we would traditionally define a successful person, for sure.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Super over here. Yeah.
No, we're going to do another one. Just talk about this topic.
No, invite me back because I have lots to say. I will say, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Just finding where you fit, right? We're all just cogs in the machine, realistically. And what is it? That movie, The Fault in Our Stars. They talk about oblivion and how one day we will all cease to exist. I'm sorry, this is dark. We'll all cease to exist.
Oh man. Nah, but I mean, like now you're
It's all about what you
keep
do
going.
when you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Heard.
It's a nice light note to.
Yes, balance. Balance is so important. Moderation. I have yin yang tatted on me. So I'm a person that really strongly believes in balance. I would say like I'm one of those zodiac girls, the horoscope girls. So you guys can both send me your date of birth, time of birth, and location, and I'll put it into my CoStar app and tell you everything about you.
Oh, really? All right, bet.
Do it. Give us the daily updates. Yeah.
Let me read your birth chart. No, I'm just kidding. I actually, I really don't know how to do that. I just, I let the app do it for me. But yeah, just like cute, interesting things that like help me contextualize the world. Other than that, I'm just, a little analyst at a big old firm.
Well, it's great. And I think that's a great way to end it. And so, something I wanted to ask: how can our listeners and viewers find you on social media, or just get to hear more about you and get to keep following your path?
Yeah, so I would say if anyone is interested in connecting with me, yes, you can follow my social media, but sometimes I delete it for long periods of time or deactivate it for long periods of time. And I guess that's also part of my pursuit of happiness, trying to separate real life from digital life. And there's just like a balance I try to strike up. And I think that now, as we're living in isolation, it's easy to become consumed in a digital life. So sometimes I'll just, deactivate. But yes, they can follow me on Instagram. And if not, add me on LinkedIn. And if anyone is really like interested in any of the things that I have to say or just wants to chat, I can give out my contact information as well. And we can chat from there.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that was a great way to end it, and definitely need to get you back on the pod to talk about, the pursuit of happiness. I bet that you would go off on that, honestly.
Yes. I'm a chatty Cathy. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I've got lots going on in my brain. But yes, if you ever need anything, just let me know. And I love this podcast. I love it. And also I have some suggestions of people that you should interview. Especially Dimitri, if you're interested in venture capital and things like that. Really cool people.
We're always open.
Yeah, please
always
do.
Open. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll stay in contact. We'll stay in touch. That's good.
Yep. Well,
you too. Take a bow to yourself.
Yeah. Come on now, humble queen. But word.
It's like the Spider-Man meme. Like we're all just like pointing at each other.
You're the best. Right?
You're the best.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to get like you, bro. Right?
I love that.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
There you have it. Chelsea Hamlet, Duke alumni, investment banking analyst at Citigroup, young entrepreneur, future business mogul, role model for any aspiring businesswoman, as we've seen with young businesswomen. And just want to thank you again for coming on Let's Travel to talk about your story, career passions, and future aspirations. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to Let's Travel on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, if you want to listen to more stories about young leaders and young hustlers. All right. Well, Chelsea, it was nice talking to you today, and we'll definitely keep in touch and talk soon.
Have a beautiful day. All right. Bye, y'all.
All right. Take care.